Okay, welcome everybody. You've had already the chance to listen to a small chat between me and David. So my name again is Joseph. I am also known as the Yocto Chester because historically the Yocto project has ambassadors, and an ambassador is kind of like a serious person that represents something, in this case the Yocto project, in a professional and respectable manner. And I was like, no, that's just not what I do, because I kind of like to have fun when I go on stage and have a good time. So I felt like I'm actually a jester, and it kind of stuck, even though I am an ambassador by now. And today, this is a real experiment. This is the longest live coding session I've ever prepared. This is the most content I've ever prepared. And I promise that things will go wrong, things will break, and I will make a fool of myself as usual, but you are all in for the ride. You're all invited. So I already mentioned in this context, the most important thing, I'm a Yocto project ambassador. This is an image from my old rock and roll days. I didn't manage the time to get proper headshots recently, like in the last 10 years or so. And just a short explanation. These days, I serve as head of developer relations for Mender.io, which is an over-the-air solution. And you might spot it here and there, but it's actually not the focus of this session. I am Yocto project ambassador, where I run most of the social media stuff together with Nico, and I also run a lot of social media for Open Embedded, which you probably know is the technical underpinnings for everything that Yocto does. And in a completely unrelated manner, I am also a so-called Gitpod.io community hero. You won't see Gitpod in action here also, because it does not match that use case, but it's a very nice tool if you need an ad hoc development setup in your browser. I'm really, really easy to connect to. You can speak up here anytime. I encourage you to use the chat, because I can read it up. Then I try to take each and every question. They can be related to the content, they can be unrelated to the content, they can be rude remarks, they can be praises. Please don't propose to me, I am already married. But beyond that, I am a very, very interactive person. If you see me live on stage, I usually throw chocolates. I can't do this remotely anymore, because I broke too many things in my own office. But like I said, really, whenever you want to add something or need a clarification on what I'm doing, just step up and make yourself known. Other than that, you can reach me on Twitter, you can send me an email, you can find me on Instagram. Actually, one attendee reached out to me over Instagram, which I find kind of like cool. I am on Mastodon and whatever is cool these days. Okay, with that out of the way, I think it's time to set the plan. In this presentation, I have a kind of project application appliance that I have coded up here, as a lot of people do. They have a standard image on their device, and then they tinker with the code until it works, and then the next step is to actually pour it into a form that is a product. And that's what we're going to do today. I have an application here on real hardware that you will see in a couple of seconds, and we want to put this into a real productized form. So we are going to create a proper metadata layout. Yeah, that's right. We are going to create a custom distro in a distro layer. If we go fast enough, then we might actually use CAS. If we go fast enough, then we will tinker with the distro or even with the machine. So a lot of things that we can do that you will see in a real project. Where I am on Mastodon, it's the Yocto Chester at fostodon.org. Early heads up, Open Embedded and the Yocto project are also on Fostodon. The accounts have been set up. They are just not active yet because I haven't gotten around to it because I was busy preparing, trying this live coding session for you. Once this is over, we will be more active on Mastodon. As already pointed out, if we are fast enough, we will use CAS. This is because I am using Kirkston in this context. You will see in a couple of minutes why that is. Since Langdale, there is also an in-tree equivalent alternative that is different in a couple of details, but in general, it's the same use case. It enables you to take a layer setup and replicate it. It has been contributed by the wonderful Alex Canavan. And if you are on a really recent release, especially Langdale or Masters/Mickeldor, I encourage you to also try this out. CAS has been around for a little longer, and that's why I'm kind of used to it. But this is explicitly no go use this advice. This is a it works for me advice. You might find your own solution. And again, use ask questions anytime. So what is this CAS? We already have that covered. Where I am on Mastodon, we also have this covered, and Marco and Vyacheslav, I always get this wrong, sorry man, have already handled CAS. Okay, no, we don't need this now because it's time for live coding. Live coding, live coding, live coding. Stop sharing, and now let's find the code. Where is it? Nope. Oh, here we go. So code YPS share. I take it that you can all see my VS Code terminal. Can anybody confirm this just for a second?
Yes, we can.
Okay, somebody can see it. What we want to do today is this. More magic coming up, hopefully. Switching to an alternative camera. Yes. So this is live from my desktop. This is a Raspberry Pi with a breadboard setup that blinks 3 LEDs in a, oh, sorry, it's mirrored, in a somewhat useful pattern. We just will call this yttrium because all of the things that I do are always named after some metal. And as the Yocto Project Summit starts with Y and yttrium also starts with Y, this application and everything around it will be called yttrium. Back to my camera so you can actually see me. So I have to reset this in the background because at the moment there is obviously a hacked up build on the device. And there is not even a I told you I will make a fool of myself, and I already have done so, because the image that I actually wanted to download to the device is not even there. I'll see if I can fix that in the background. And then we will go on. So artifact. Let's see if we can actually get into. No, we can't get into the device. Sorry. Like I said, I always make a fool of myself. I didn't intend it to be that fast. If it takes me more than 1 minute, I will just go on and figure it out sometime later. Then I will just, oh, this should actually be fine. Okay, while this proceeds, let me talk about how I personally usually try to organize things. So I have a setup here that is a pretty much standard build for a Raspberry Pi. It is reproduced using repo in this context as a starting point. Why is that? Because a lot of vendors actually give you a repo file. NXP is one of the prime ones, and to set up your layers. I already mentioned CAS. It's the alternative that I personally prefer. But again, we are trying to stick as much to a real life development experience as possible. And there you will often start out by having a repo setup. Trying the new Flash. Hopefully it works now. Seriously? This is kidding me. No, now I get it. So we are ready, fixing our first build, hopefully. Local.conf. Raspberry Pi 4. And then let's churn it away for another second. This is when you need to when you want to like tinker with either 32 bits or 64 bits. Let's see what happens. Hopefully something will happen. Okay, so where did we leave off? This is the setup, the build that I prepared. It's Pocky, Meta Raspberry Pi, and Open Embedded as the standard setup that a lot of people know. And Mender is in for one simple reason. I can dispatch an image once we have built it, mostly directly to the target. This saves us the process of pulling out the SD card, flashing it. The flash should take a lot of time in order to verify it and everything. So this is just a faster way to actually deploy an image to the device. Hopefully the cache is hot, so this does not take too long now. Yeah, that looks somewhat okay. No, no fun. Raspberry Pi 4. I think this does not end well. So again, backwards, reflash the device while we talk and explain. This always happens. There is always something going wrong. And images. I just need to download it and flash the device while for image minimal. Nope. So I just need to pull out the SD card and flash the device while we then will do some layer creation. What has happened? Like I said, it's always the fun part of live coding is that I break things, and the also fun part is that I got to explain what I'm doing. So I have a Raspberry Pi 4 in this setup, and I gave the build a test, obviously, on Raspberry Pi 4, whereas I prepared the setup that I want to show you on Raspberry Pi 4 64-bit, which does not work in order to roll out the next image then. So we just need to make sure this is all coherent. Okay, now we've got a hot build. Better. So I already told you, we want to organize the application. In this case, the application is just a shell script. It's really simple. It exports a number of GPIOs and then runs a pattern forever. Just the application by itself is not doing anything. It needs to be kicked off. We have an assistantD service for that. We also have a number of settings in local.conf. Let's look at those. For example, Raspi use U-boot. The UART is enabled. The init manager is selected. So there's a couple of things that are wild mixes of things that actually reflect the distribution and things that reflect the machine. And we're going to sort that out a little bit now. So I personally am a big fan of having a layer that holds everything of the application and one that holds the distribution, and if required, one that holds the machine. Because those three things should, in an optimal case, be orthogonal. You should be able to run each distribution and each application on each machine and combine them any way you want. This is not always reflecting reality, but it's hopefully good enough as an understanding. For a real setup, that means you have 3 different layers that you need to revision control somewhere. And the question now is, would you put all of those in separate layers or not? And my personal opinion is no, they should go into one multi-layer setup. These are relatively popular. Meta Open Embedded actually holds a number of sublayers. Pocky holds a number of sublayers. In that specific case, it's actually a combined layer in itself. So that's not completely accurate, but it still comes in different layers. Mender also comes in a number of layers. MetaArm comes in a number of layers. So I think it's fair to say this is a proven technique. How do you create a layer? Does anybody want to chime in the chat for 1 second? Who knows how to create your own layer? Nick gets the chocolate. Copy paste. Very good. But yes, very good. We have got an excellently prepared crowd here. Because bitbake layers create layer is actually the recommended way. I know that bitbake, that vi layer.conf is the canonical way, as pointed out by Richard. But let's say it's probably not suitable for everybody, okay? So my machine is hopefully also back up in the background. So bitbake create layer. And you can see I have this folder here called Meta Yttrium. And it's empty besides one license file. Why is that? Because after the session, I intend to push all of the things that we created, or I created, and you heckled me during it, to GitHub. And this is literally just an empty Git repository on GitHub at my account, Yocto.chester/meta-atrium, and I initialized it with a license. So we want meta-atrium to hold our new layers. We are in base build. So we are here. We want to go here, and we want to create a layer meta-atrium distro. And we want to create one layer meta-atrium app. You can see that those are literally identical at the moment, and they both bring us a example recipe. We can have a short look at that. It's not that much fun, but you will see it in action in a few seconds. So we have created the layers, but that does not mean anything yet. It's bitbake layers. Add layer. Again, meta-atrium, meta-atrium distro, meta-atrium app. And probably it even clashes now if we kick it off. Let's try it out, because we have two completely identical recipes for example. Let's see what happens. And D dot, I don't know what the what your real name is. I'll stick with DD for now. Make a folder, add a license. That's technically or legally required, I would say, but actually that does not make it a layer. It is a layer if it has a subdirectory called conf, and in there is a valid layer.conf. That's what makes a directory a layer for Yocto. So you see, the layers are there because we see the output of it in the build. We don't want our distro to actually bring the examples and I want to and now I think I can actually refresh my device. Okay, so distro should be as clean as possible and only bring a sensible distro for our use case. And the application should also be as self-contained as possible. So in distro, we are going to create a subdirectory called conf distro, because that's where bitbake goes hunting for distros. And we are going to create, guess what? A distribution that's called Atrium. Distributions are configuration files because they can set things that have a build-wide global effect. If somebody feels like joining me for a small chant, remember, recipe data is local, configuration data is global. Whenever you don't know where to put something, at least on a very rough scale, if it needs to affect more than one recipe, it needs to go into a configuration file. So we have atrium.conf, and now it's time to give it a very, very form. I need to look at my notes, which I already can find right now, as usual. So That, distro. Okay, so we want to create a distribution as a first start, and I don't know if it's a necessarily always best practice, but it's a practice that works well enough for me. We are going to stick with Pocky as the default, and then just fine tune the things that we care for. Therefore, we define that as an addition to a distro overrides that our distribution called Yttrium should behave just like Pocky when it comes to a standard build for now. We do this by these two lines: require conf distro pocky.conf. So we define we want to behave like Pocky, and then we pull in all of Pocky in order to actually have the effect. From there on, we just set up a name. And somebody smashed something, or was it a ringing bell, or what was that? Cool. No idea. JC, do you want to say something? That sounds like you're doing really cool things. This is the first time that during live coding somebody is doing metal milling.
I muted him.
Oh, okay. I actually found that pretty interesting because you know, my typing is acoustically not that useful. Codename jesting. So we should have a distribution by now. How do we enable it? In the build configuration, local.conf, and where is our distro? Pocky Yttrium. Let's see if that works. Bake or image minimal. We are doing a lot of let's say boring infrastructure stuff right now. Usually my live coding sessions try to focus on one really interesting part, and this time is different. So you can tell me afterwards if it's a good or a bad idea to do things that are no fun but necessary instead of doing things that are fun and not necessary. I don't know. I'm open to feedback. We are now 30 minutes in, and if we have finished our first build, then I would say it's time for a small celebration. Okay, it parses, and let's have a short look. It says distribution Yttrium distro version is also there, and if it does not do a big rebuild, yes, systemd pulling in the distro name and therefore modifying something is probably legit. Yeah, that looks good. I guess we have built our first distribution in a live coding session today. And then we shall celebrate. Rejoice. Yeah. Felipe missed the step after creating the layer. It's bitbake minus layers add layer. So create layer prepares a directory in a layer meaning, and bitbake add layer actually then adds it to bblayers.conf. If you look here, if you look into bblayers.conf, then the layers have to be there. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So image complete, license. Hooray, that works. I told you we will celebrate. People who have already seen me live will know this means that it's time to open a beer. It's always beer o'clock somewhere. So this is legit. I think we have people from India here. It's way past drinking time for you, right? For those in Brazil, well, you are invited to join in. Ross asks what this beer is. This is a relatively standard bright beer from the oldest brewery in the world. It's a Weihenstephaner Helles. Espen asks, what's the advantage of splitting into separate app and distro layers that you can mix and match? Because you will often have an application that that runs or that you want to ship for different distributions. I admit that in this specific setup, it's not a hard requirement because both of the layers are in my top repository. So if you really want to take it one step forwards, you would create separate directories. But in a nutshell is that in my experience, when I was doing real embedded projects, you often would have one application or one project, one device that you are maintaining. And after a number of months or years, there is a big hardware revision that is essentially completely incompatible with the old revision, but should run the same application. And then you have a problem if in your machine layer or if your application layer is entangled too much with the distro and with the machine, because you can get all kinds of funny effects if those things are not cleanly separated. And if you put a machine and a distro and an application in separate layers, and if possible, you also test them separately, then you can, in the long run, avoid a couple of those issues. As usual, whatever I say, take it with a pinch of salt. Your specific project can be different, but this is a practice that has worked well for me. You believe that the whatever symbol is called tech. Yes. If you say so, then I will also believe now that the symbol is called tech now. That is good to know, I would say. Very good. I will read that explanation in a second. For now, let me see if I can actually put that image on the device. No, I cannot because I forgot something, obviously. But we will do so in a second. Remove now. Okay. And update again. Yeah, Antti, actually, you just missed it. It's a maintenance thing. If you have things that entangle machine and distro and application closely, then that might work for your situation right now, but it will give you massive headaches in a year or two if the next machine iteration comes up. So let's see if we can put that on the device. And then I will actually need to change because I completely forgot to actually show you the device that we are on. So I have a serial terminal here that is also active. Yes, okay, looks good. So deployment is ongoing. Okay, while I put that image on the device, let's go on. We have that application layer, recipes example. We obviously don't really want or need that one. Let's get rid of it. Delete permanently. Then we recreate another one. We call it recipes Atrium. Another sublayer called Atrium app. And in there, we create a file that we call Atrium app underscore 1.0 bb. Okay, there's a lot of arcane magic hidden in here. And this is the first time we actually have the time to look at it. So in a layer, the search path for recipes is clearly defined. A lot of people don't know that. Richard knows. Yuri also knows. Now I remember it. But those of you who do not know, have a look at layer.conf. Clayton, yes, much to my dismay, the recording will be available after. So you can see 40 minutes of myself so far just making useless things. So if you look at this, in your layer.conf, there is a variable that's called bb files. And this bb files variable defines per layer where BitBake shall actually go looking for the recipes. So, and if you look at this, there's a number of asterisks in there. So layer directory, that's meta Atrium app. In this meta Atrium app, it expects a subdirectory that's called recipes something, which we gave it. In there is the Atrium app subdirectory, which matches this piece of the path. And then in there is a recipe that ends in bb. And only sticking to that magic actually will enable BitBake to find your recipe. If you either use a different ending, or if you leave out one of the directory hierarchies, it just won't work. And it will work in a, let's say, sometimes unexpected way, because you can see the recipe in your file tree. You say, hey, what's the problem? There is a file that's called atriumapp.bb, but BitBake won't find it. And if that happens, you most probably have left out one of those two subdirectory levels. Something is going on with my flashing. I need to, it's already installed. Okay, that's no problem. Okay, so we have that. What do we need to put into this? We obviously do not really want to compile something, because that's just a shell script that we want to ship. So we will create a directory right next to the recipe and call it files. And into that directory, we move the things. Troubles understanding custom distro versus different images. This is I'm not sure if it's a Theophile or Theophile or whatever, but yes, that's actually a common problem. An image can only select. So thanks for the question. We have that at least 3 times a week in IRC. So an image can only select what gets installed, but is provided by other recipes. So if you have your image, and we will have one in a couple of minutes, then you can say, okay, Bash goes into it, this library goes into it, and this application goes into it. But the image cannot affect those recipes. And that's why I chanted earlier, recipe data is local. So in your image, which is also a recipe, you cannot set any flags for your application. For example, you want a debug flag for your application or for your applications to kick in if you are doing a debug build. You cannot do this from an image, because when your application is built, it has no way of knowing if it is a debug build or not. Whereas if you are doing a distro and a debug distro, I actually have made a live coding session on that too. Then this is visible everywhere. So you have one production distribution that that sets your API effectively, and then you have a debug distro which takes the production distribution and then adds my debug, for example. And all of your applications that you want the debug feature to actually kick in, then look for this feature and act accordingly. If we are fast enough, we can actually try and do this. Maybe it's even more interesting than CAS. So I'm absolutely willing to also do that, but let's first make a somewhat product. Okay, we have put the files that we want to install in there already. That's good. And now we need to make it a small recipe. Let me find my cheat sheet, because I am no Richard. I cannot write recipes right from the top of my head. Really, really sorry. I really need to cheat. So, Atrium app. Actually, copy pasting is even easier than cheating. Okay, let's put it in there. Sometimes it also happens that Bitbag ignores a recipe. The only 2 things that I know why a recipe would be ignored is that if it has a compatible machine set, which means you are building for a machine. That's the 3rd one. Thanks, Andreas. 3 things. If compatible machine is set in a way that the recipe cannot build for it. If skip recipe is set, so the recipe is still in your layers, but for some reason disabled because it cannot be built at the moment. And bbmask. bbmask is, fun fact, again, is a global thing. So you can remove recipes in a layer from another layer. Sometimes that is it is ugly, but it is your last rescue if if you are working with an upstream vendor layer that ships crazy stuff that does not build for your machine, and they do not filter it out. So you can remove those things by BB mask. Image install remove. Okay, Salahuddin, sorry. 2 problems. First, old syntax. We are on Kirkston now, so if you actually want to remove, then it is image install : remove, please. Second, image install remove is the single most useless operation that exists, because there is absolutely no reason to build an image or to use an image and then remove stuff from it. Why would I do that? Why would I not just write the image and include whatever I want? Why do I take something, add a lot of stuff that I don't actually want, and then remove it again? I don't get it. Sorry. I take it that it's not bad intent, that you saw that somewhere else, but seriously, whenever somebody shows you a recipe that contains image install remove, then if you ask me, then that's a bug. Straight as is. Cheers to that. Okay, enough ranting. We need to do useful things. So Yttrium, everything is better with bacon. Yes, that is actually correct. So I think this already looks pretty good. Bacon is because the original setup on which I tried to create this hardware was actually a bacon cape, as it's called. If you're interested, ping me in private, and then I'll tell you the story about it. Okay, so let's see. Application, license, MIT. Again, first one to tell me why license equals closed is a bug. Gets no chocolate because we are virtual, but can feel great. Okay, is that a deal? So we have license MIT, and we check against that. We want to ship one file. Yttrium is there. Ross does not answer if there's no chocolate. Yeah, too bad, man. It's just a shell script that we want to that we want to copy. So this does not need any configuration. This does not need any compilation. We just do install. We make sure bindir actually exists, and we copy the file to that. That does not look that bad. Yuri says he answers if there's whiskey. Hey, I gave you enough whiskey last time we met, okay? I actually have leftovers. Where do you get the checksum magic from? Good question. In this case, I copy pasted it from another recipe somewhere in Pocky. Andrew says, don't we need the service file too? Yes, but that's the next build, okay? And Hashem says, Bitbag will tell you if the checksum is missing. Yes, that's correct. But a lot of people will then just put in closed to get rid of the warning. So we have a recipe now. Let's see if it actually works. Bitbag Yttrium app. Then let's make an image, and then we will see what happens. You've seen file directories and names as PN. So what's the best practice here? Okay. For the files path, I would say whatever. If it's clear which is meant, then files is good enough. If you have a more complex setup where there are a number of directories that are serving files, then the latter might be more verbose. So it's one of the rules. If I create code, is I do it in a way that the next person who looks at it can understand what I mean. And in this case, I would say Yttrium app and the files right next to it makes perfectly clear where the files go to. Therefore, I don't feel a need to be more verbose about it. If there would be Yttrium app demos, Yttrium tests or whatever, then and those would live in different directories, then I would probably go for a package name setup. So both is fine. And yes, Ross is correct. Technically, you should ship a license with your application. I just think that this bash script does not deserve any more license than this. Okay. No one answered. See, I just need to make one small modification and then we kick off the build and then you will see, okay? So rasp2 bake core image minimal. So since nobody answered, because license closed, actually it does not say this is a proprietary or closed license, because closed just tells BitBake to shut up. The line license equals closed essentially tells BitBake, I know what I'm doing, even if I don't know, don't tell me anything about the license of this file. I don't care. And therefore, you are probably shipping stuff without checking or understanding its actual license situation. Therefore, it is essentially almost always a bug. Yuri also explained it more concisely. So we are creating an image and then hopefully shipping it in a second. Is there already some recommendation for stuff that is following reuse? I have to be honest, I have no idea what you are asking. Can you try to rephrase? All files deserve a license. That's correct, and I define that this file is under MIT by setting it, but I just don't want to copy MIT over for additional bloat. Okay, we have now built core image minimal. Let me upload and hopefully deploy. And then I will get to Lucas. Okay. Select the release file, create, go. Actually, my phone and my smartwatch are vibrating all the time. If somebody of you is pinging me on a channel that is not Zoom or IRC, I will get to it later. Okay, thanks. So, and with that, let's see if we can get into the device for now. Let me change the screen. Here you go. You are hopefully seeing that we are booting on the new image. Like I said, that's the main reason why I have why I have inserted Mender. I can put a new image on the device without juggling cards back and forth. So you can see we now have our Yttrium distribution, which is cool. we can log into it, and we want to run Yttrium, and what? It's not there, right? Let's look at the recipe. Bin dir. So user bin. There is no Yttrium. And that's kind of like, nah, right? So we are now getting to the point that I just mentioned when we were talking about distros versus images. We need an image. So recipes Yttrium gets a new folder, images, and there, new file, Yttrium image. Oh, I need to change the share. Apologies. Here you go. Yttrium image, rename BB. And into this image, we now actually put the things that that we want. Again, I'm going to be lame and copy pasting. So description. This is a small image just capable of running Yttrium app. We install. This is straight out of core image minimal, package group core boot, package group distro base. This I added intentionally so our distribution can define things that we want to add. Not sure we are going to need that, but hey, it sometimes can be useful. We don't want any image linguas, and image install append Yttrium app. Thanks for the hint, Ross. I owe you some chocolate next time. If you so wish, you can also have leftover Irish whiskey. Anybody coming to FOSDEM, by the way? Okay, so we now have an image. And see, I am defining the image. I really literally write down what I want in the image. Why would there be any sane reason to write image install remove in there? I don't know. You tell me, but I don't get it. Yes, and Ross already explained the FOSDEM thing, so I will be there. There will also be an open embedded in-person meeting on the Monday after FOSDEM. And FOSDEM is not only a super spreading event, FOSDEM is also a super drinking event. So you don't only bring home the FOSDEM flu, you also bring home a proper FOSDEM hangover. So if we are renting, then we do it properly, okay? Not leaving out half of it. Flu and hangover, if you're doing it properly. So next iteration. This is image number 3. And then, not core image minimal, but we want to bitbake Yttrium image now. Here we go. Yes, building, more talking. Any other questions? Or should we already elaborate on the distro part that Ross already got started? Your call. You can listen to me babbling, or we can talk about the moving stuff around part. Where is versioning or you are using? So there is no versioning involved yet. I just don't do any git commits in between. Okay. Nope. No. That was way too much stuff. Core image boot. Where does that come from? Let me see. Because obviously there something was being pulled in that I don't want to. Because I certainly don't want ICU at the moment. Core image boot. Maybe distro base gave me a headshot then. Okay. Actually, I remember that there is a number of questions that we had. The space in image linguas, that's just copy pasta, because that's the very exact way it is in core image minimal BB. I just copy pasted it. Now it works. Okay. Where is the versioning? Technically, you should do git commit after every 10 minutes. I don't do that. I keep on babbling and then I break stuff. And the Mender artifact name is a string that you can put into whatever. I'm not showing it here because this is not a Mender talk. I just need to change it in some way so it does show up in my management interface and I can follow the thread. So if you want to talk about this at a later point in time, like I said, this is a productization presentation code babbling drinking thing. If somebody is interested in my professional life, I'm happy to talk about it, but not in this context. Sorry. How can you make a debug distro in a way that your app is built with certain build flags? I suggest that once we have the image and the build sorted out here, then we make a debug build and skip the CAS part, because we have 2 other CAS presentations at YPS, but none that will tell you the debug distro part. So this is what we probably should do. Okay. Okay, now we have a build. And we are uploading it. And it's uploaded and we are installing. Where is it? So here is it. Create deployment form. And here we go. Okay. So let's change over again. To the terminal. And while that builds, let's sort out a little bit of stuff. I'm torn, Vishniak. I think it's Vishniak. If let's put it like that, okay? If at least 5 people publicly agree in the chat that it's okay if I show the process once, then I'll do it. Okay. Okay. So, anyways, we have the image out. We can log in, and now Atrium is there. We can. So again, let's start the other camera thing. Camera thing. Where is the camera thing? So my phone as camera again. You can see the board. And now kick off Yttrium. And hooray, application is running. And we only took like 1 hour and 10 minutes, including all of the bug fixing. That's pretty cool. So, okay, back to the camera. Let's make the distribution cleanups. And you noticed it, I needed to start Yttrium because there is no system default. We will do that as the next and hopefully like somewhat final step. And then we get to the rest of whatever's. Okay. So back to the code. Now we have local.conf and we have yttrium.conf. And now we are sorting a little bit. In Yttrium, we can put in that we want Mender installed and systemd, because my usual discrimination is if it directly affects the machine, it goes into the machine configuration. If it is something that affects how your image behaves, then it technically, or on a more philosophical level, it is a form of ABI or API, and therefore it goes into the distribution. The distribution, if you boil it down to the absolute bare minimum, then it is the API definition of your image. And therefore, I want systemd, and I want the Mender API and mechanisms to be in there, so I put it in there. What else do we have in there? Machine. So this technically should go into a machine override. But as that technically works the very same way as a distro override, I don't want to do it right now because there is no knowledge gain for you hidden in there. But to clean out all of this, resp use boot, setting the boot partition and selecting the things that are required to actually work in this context could go into a custom override machine. For the image install image FS types, there is some wiggle room. It depends. There is not always a clear rule to follow. Okay, but now, final steps. We want systemd. So again, I need my cheat sheets. And hopefully I can actually find it. So recipes for proper. Okay, what do we want? We want inherit systemd. We want that the systemd service that this installs is not proper, it is Yttrium service. The recorded meeting, recorded session should end up on YouTube, much to my dismay, because it does not make me look good, as usual. And if there is a reason for sticking with systemd instead of sys5 init instead of systemd, well, if you either do not need any features that systemd gives you, or if you are really short on resources, then you can stick with systemd. System5 init. There is nothing wrong with that. Whatever whatever matches your requirements. There is no this is the only one true way. Systemd is popular. Yes, it also matches a lot of use cases, but if it's not your use case, then use something else. That's it, if you ask me. Okay, so now we are adding this. Let's make it a little bit more pretty. And this. Oh, that's neat. Okay, we have set the thing, install. And now like I said, this is a copy pasta show that you are witnessing, and I am. Yes, you're right, Enrico. This is virtual chocolate that goes out to you. Crazy that somebody's actually listening to what I do. Crazy. No, we want that and that and not Dropbear ad service. Like I said, I'm cloning out of Dropbear usually if I do need a systemd setup, and this was not good. That looks better. Okay, deal with systemd units. Make sure that the directory exists. We install the file, and then we do this. And why is this? Actually, we could probably let's try something crazy here. Or no. First, no tries, and then later. So this should inject the proper paths then, because that they can vary. You see, this obviously does not work, home root. Okay. Let's see what happens. Again, version bump 4, and then bitbag trim image. Enrico grab some actual chocolate. That's very good. Okay. Did I miss any questions in the meantime while I was so busy copy pasting? Obviously not. Please show the service file again. Oh, yes, sure. This is super boring. It really just should kick off the shell script and install it by multi-user default. This is probably the most single most boring file that exists. Is there any repos recipes where you can see examples of the proper usage of a machine distro configuration file? That's a good question. I think that that Texas Instruments, when Dennis was still with them, did a pretty good job on their Meta Arago. So that might serve as a good shot. Don't look at anything that I did. Maybe the YOE distro by Chem. I haven't looked at it in much detail, but meta arago, meta dash ARAGO. Chem, and together with Cliff Burton, I think, runs a thing that's called Yocto distro, and Chem certainly knows his stuff, so that might be my next guess to look at. That should be pretty clean too. Okay, build is finished, and Cliff break. Sorry, thanks, Ross. I can make you Ross break to for restoring equilibrium. Okay. Okay. I had a drink, and now I'm showing the way that I use to upload the files. Like I said, only by popular request. I am Mender CLI artifacts upload Yttrium image, and then I just grab the Mender file. The magic that I have in the distro build makes this work. It uploads, and then that's it. And after that, I need to hop over to another image. That's that one. I have only that one device, so I select it, deploy. And this is why I changed the names, so I know what's going on. YPS RASP4 create. Let me say thanks for the interest, but we're going back to not this at the moment. We can talk about it at a later point in time. Okay. Ross, break it again. In Germany, we actually have a saying, if you break later, you are fast for a longer time. So don't break. Okay, reboot. And if we did not go wrong anywhere else, then yay! Mission accomplished. The device rebooted, the service gets started, and we have kind of productized our Yttrium application. Now we could just push all of this into our GitHub repository, add a CAS file, and then be gone. I would say, or add a layer config file if we are using the mainline version. I would say we go for the debug distro thing first, okay? Is that a yes or a no? Because nobody gives any reaction. I see 1 yes, 2 yes. Okay, that's enough for me. And thanks, Peter, for the explanation. So in order to understand a debug distribution, you should be aware of 2 things. First, we can inspect variables. So I've seen that this has been mentioned in the chat, right? Let's go. And suppose say if it console output console failed instead of okay. In that case, if my process wouldn't start, then I would do like this: journal control fu yttrium, and then I would see if there is something going on with my process. But actually, there is nothing because it started happily. Okay, sorry, I forgot to switch the share. We need to go back to the code. So we talked about. I talked and did, and you didn't see it. I talked about understanding things that are going on for a recipe. So it has already been mentioned. Bitbake E, yttrium app. You can see we kick this off and we wait for things that happen. Okay. Did you actually manage to see anything? Chances are that the answer is no. So in somewhat recent releases, there's Bitbake Get Var. We are talking about the recipe yttrium app. And then we can see whatever we can define what we want to see. And in this case, for a reason that you will want to see, that you will see in a couple of minutes, I want to look at distro features. So I ask for distro features, and you can see this is the evaluation history, and distro features ends up as this string. We're not going to dive into that because it's not really relevant at the moment. But we are doing two things now. We are making an additional distribution that we call yttrium debug.conf. We are just going to include yttrium.conf, and then we be like distro features append y debug. Forgot the equals. Y debug. Okay, so the space is important. Let's look at local.conf. We switch to yttrium debug. And let's look at this again. Now it takes a longer time because it reparses. My beer is empty. Parse, 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 parse. Parse, parse. Parse. Okay. Now you can see that in distro features, there is the flag Y debug. And now I can trigger on that. Does it make sense to have a build there with its own local.conf for debugging? Yes and no. Depends on how you structure your builds. If you share a common state, then build directories are cheap. I mean, if your state is hot, which you will hopefully have the joy of experience, joy to experience. Yeah, I think that's correct. In the upcoming hands-on classes by David and Rudy, I think they gave them. then you will see that a fresh build with a hot state and otherwise completely empty can be done in like 2 or 3 minutes if your disks are fast enough. So it really doesn't matter how many build directories you have. What matters is the state of your state cache. Everything else is whatever. And yes, you can change distro from the command line. I just happen to always forget it if I am expected to pass in something through the command line. I always get it wrong. I'm actually surprised how little stuff I got wrong in the last 50 minutes after a really bad start. But yay. Okay, so now we are in Itrium app. So we have this we now have this debug flag set. Let's try to do something with it. Let me find the my cheat sheet again. And I mean, this is a shell script, so adding things there, and especially as it has an endless while loop at the end, I have no real good idea. Oh, okay. Let's make it like that. I change the file here, and let's say this is echo Itrium production version. Okay. And here in the do install, okay, I'm completely sure that I will get this wrong now. Because I usually do this in a variable. But you probably could do it or no, okay, let's make it like that. Development Itrium development version. So, and now Y version. If distro features contains Y debug, then we either give it a debug. You can see that I copy pasted this out from somewhere else again, or a production. So if bbutils contains is a utility function. If distro features contains Y debug, then it sets debug into Y version. If not, then it sets production into Y version. And therefore, we be like this. Development. Y version G in this file, right? Itrium sh. Let's see. The string development is replaced by Y version in this file. Let's see what happens. Bitbag atrium image. I think we have bumped the version, right? 5, yes, looks good. Yeah, looks good. Build. Now we're fast. We even have half an hour left to do crazy stuff. What shall we do next? I didn't expect to actually manage to get through all of this. Shall we create another machine? Or machine layer and machine? I mentioned the alternative. I can cook up the link at the moment. It's really, really similar. It's a plugin, as I understand it, to bitbag layers. So maybe somebody like Ross or so can give Alexander a link. I actually have not tried it myself yet because I'm only on Kirkston. If nobody can give you a link, ping me later, then I'll dig it up for you. Okay. And Dylan asks, no, the script is not asking that. So here is this. Here is the string development. And I put either debug or production into Y version. And then I replace the development string by Y version in the do install stage. So it's a bit it's a bit sneaky, and I will tell you in a second why that is. Okay. So without context, usually you would do something like that. You would, if you have a package that needs to be compiled, as most source happens to be, you would pass in a debug on or verbose or whatever flag through the configuration flags. And in the case of make or auto tools, you would add stuff to extra OE make, and then it gets passed in. If you're using CMake, as I was doing in the other copy pasta blueprint, then you put things into extra OE CMake, and this is how you do it. You trigger for a flag in distro features, and then depending on that, you add either verbose on or verbose off to CMake. So the set to the script is a completely made up thing in the last 5 minutes to show you the effect of the flag. Okay. So let's switch shares again over to the terminal. The application is running. And generally FU Itrium. So let's see if that actually works. Yes. And here it is. You see the string in the script that actually made it into the image obviously is Itrium debug version. So this kicked in. We checked for Y debug is set. This is set, this kicks in, and I can do a modification wherever in the image. This is obviously completely overblown for one set file in a recipe. But imagine you have an application suite that consists of like 3, 4, 5 separate recipes that interact and that you all want to switch on, debug, or off in one go. And then you add this into every recipe, turn on your flags as you need it, and that's it. Okay, we have 25 minutes left. What should we do? Machine layer or CAS? I think CAS will go wrong because it would be a lot of copy pasta, and I don't see any real value. There's a lot of other. Okay, so the consensus is on machine layer. Very good. I like that. So bake layers, create layer meta Yttrium BSP. Yes, wrong share. Very good, Paolo. But you didn't miss anything. It didn't click enter yet. So Yuri is right, but in this case, I am my own vendor for a machine that happens for reasons that are completely random to be exactly like a Raspberry Pi 4. Okay. So we create the BSP layer. We have now that. Okay. Add the layer. Okay. And again, we clean that one out. We add a subdirectory that's called machine. And you get to choose how we call that machine, okay? Any good pointers? Use my BSP layer to define the LED pins. That's an interesting take, actually. That's an interesting take. We can do that. So I personally define that we call this machine Yttrium Pi. That's good. I like that one. That's a good one. Can somebody maybe look up if Yttrium is toxic? So if we make like actual pi from it. So I missed it. Yes, you are so right. So Yttrium Pi con. We are machine overriding the Raspberry Pi 4. And let me see, so I don't get anything wrong here. Okay, no, that's essentially the getting started. Okay, so what should we do? Lucas, I'll get to you in a second. I think this all is legit to put into the Yttrium Pi. And we select the Yttrium Pi machine. I fear that this ends up giving us a long compile now, but we will see. Okay, we have the Yttrium Pi, which happens to behave just like a Raspberry Pi 4. We have slapped in everything that we know already. And now we are going like that. Like I said, we'll find out. Okay, so LED 1 equals, let's put in a marker that we call YLED 1. I swear this is not ending well, but okay. This is not ending well. Nope. Does this work? I doubt it. Probably not. Oh, no, even better. Let's make it like that. Okay. I know this is lame, but it works. So okay. Now we can inject that. That looks good. Okay, Yttrium application. We need a bunch of additional replacements. LED 1. No, this is replaced by exactly YLED 1. Go. 2, 3. 3, 2, and in okay, and in Yttrium Pi we set YLED 1 is 17. 22, 27, 32. Okay. Wieśniak, technically you are correct. But modifying a device tree and all the shebang that comes with it is definitely way too much for a session like that. You are from a maintenance point of view perfectly correct. From a stage point of view, which I am technically in at the moment. I am on a stage and I'm showing things to you. It just doesn't work. So, okay, what did we miss? We've got the Atrium Pi. We've got things set there. We have this. We have selected the machine. Okay, and now I just need the version bump, the usual. And now I wonder what will happen because I've never tried that before. DD, add variable add is not a Yocto thing. It's just you can also put in XXX, YYY. It just doesn't matter. I obviously forgot to include the require conf machine Raspberry Pi 4. Fast incremental builds by estate. That's a good question. I don't know. Completely honest, I don't know. Maybe somebody else can tell you. Okay, this builds, and if this now takes a lot of stuff, then we just have to call it off. But if the estate matches, which I hope, because I did not add any magic, I think that should kick in. It's building the kernel. Yeah, I think we have some time to talk now. We will see if it finishes in the next 10 minutes. If not, then I would say I've done my very best to explain. If not, then apologies. I'll have another one just because I can. What do you think? Was this useful? Should I do something like that more often, or should I focus on very specific things usually? Because today it was more like a grab bag, as I understand it. There was a little bit of everything, but nothing that is a real technical deep dive. I felt like this was sharing experiences that I run into. Okay, at least in the chat, people seem to think that my babbling is useful. Well then, thanks and cheers to you who have all listened to me. And yes, the Meta Yttrium layer will be up on GitHub in, we can do that right now. So, additional console, Meta Yttrium, git status. Yeah, git add a, just because we can, git commit s. Come on, Meta Yttrium, end of YPS, live coding state. Thanks for joining. And then I would say here you go. Oops, why did this end up as a private message? I want to post to everybody. Everyone. Okay, now save chat. I want to. This only goes to Park. Why now? Everybody? Ah, okay. Here you go, everybody. This is literally the end of the code. If the kernel manages to compile in the next roughly 8 minutes, then we can put the software on the device and can see if it actually works still with the LEDs defined through Yttrium Pi. If not, then, well, I will tell you later, okay? What do you want to talk about in the last 8 minutes? Who of you is coming to FOSDEM? Who of you is coming to the EOS? Next year, we have the Embedded Operating System Summit, which is kind of cool, hopefully. Maybe you missed it, why it is slower to build now that there's a new machine. Ross can probably explain in more detail, but the Linux kernel recipes trigger on the machine. And now that machine has a different string in it, it doesn't know if it still matches and therefore recompiles. I think that's the nutshell. Can I compare to SW update? Yes, I can. I don't want to go into details. Let me put it like that. I have used SW update in the past too, very successfully. I have not used ROC because I never had the need to, but I know that it is also a very good update solution. We are in close contact, so this is, let's say, a very, very good friendship between the 3 projects. The key difference that I feel worth pointing out is that ROC and SW update only give you a client solution. They do that very well. They give you very powerful tools, but they are client only. And in order to actually do OTA, they rely on Hawkbit. And you either have to host it yourself or whatever, but it's something else. And it's a super cool Java blob by Bosch. And Mender gives you a backend and the client. So we are like an end-to-end thing. I think that's fair to say. Beyond that, like I said, not in this session, please. Thanks. The purpose of a distro layer. Consider when making one. My personal consideration for a distribution is whenever you have something that affects the API of your image. So if the application that you write requires something that is not a direct dependency. Example, you are building a C++ application and you need Boost. That is a dependency. You can just say depends equals Boost. If you need Boost to be compiled with a specific flag, for example, for example, the C++ 14 flag, then this actually changes the behavior and the API of Boost for all of the applications in your build. So it changes the API of your operating system. Therefore, it needs to go into distro. That's my discrimination thing. If something affects how your Linux behaves towards you or your application, then it's ABI/API, and therefore it goes into distribution. Unless, and that's the next step, it directly relates to the machine in question. Then it goes into the machine. Though those are not always clearly separatable. You see this here in Yttrium Pi. We have the image types append and remove. Now, does that need to go into machine or not? In the case of Mender, we need this stuff in the root file system. So we could say this is part of the API, or we could say it's part of the machine because it relates to the kernel. It's not always clear. Use your own judgment. It's better to make a conscious decision and then be wrong, because you at least try to understand it, instead of just copy pasting something without even thinking about it. I guess that's the message I need to convey. There was one other question, that somebody seems to have issues when changes don't cause a rebuild of all the necessary files. Then the best bet is that BitBake does not know about your changes. And if it does not know about your changes, then you are usually doing something dirty, like having a directory next to the recipe that holds a bunch of source code or whatever, and then globbing it instead of telling the specific files. BitBake cannot glob on files in the layer, and this is a common problem. For example, or in a nutshell, if BitBake does not pick up your changes, then you probably have not told BitBake that there is something that could be changed. I take it that Richard was not asking me. Yes. This build will probably go on for a lot more time. Let me change the share. Like I said, Mender is what I do for a living. You can reach out for me in whatever context, just not when I'm doing a Yocto presentation. We have had already a lot of question and answers, hopefully. I guess it was more questions than answers, but I usually do my very best. Thanks everybody who made it through 2 hours of fighting an Yttrium machine. And with that, I would say have a short break, and then we're back for David's session, as far as I know. Right?
Thank you so much, Joseph.